Good Thursday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Conversation Daily News. Glad you all could be with us. Well, we made it over the hump. We're in the home stretch for the weekend. We, of course, have your news headlines coming up on this Thursday. With a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By, and in today's Entertainment Spotlight, you've been part of my conversation with award-winning author and music journalist Mark Blake, discussing his new book, Magnifico, The A to Z of Queen. You don't want to miss that. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with their Thursday headlines. In international news, Russia claims pullout from occupied city. Ukraine is skeptical. Russia's military said on Wednesday it will withdraw from the only Ukrainian regional capital it captured, but Kyiv was skeptical, and an analyst warned this could be a ruse to lure the country's forces into a deadly trap. A forced pullout from the city of Kherson would mark one of Russia's worst setbacks in the 8-month war. Ukrainian authorities caution against considering the announced plan to retreat from Kherson, a gateway to the Russian-occupied Crimean Peninsula and nearby areas, as a done deal. President Zelensky has warned that the Russians were feigning a pullout from Kherson to lure the Ukrainian army into an entrenched battle in the strategic industrial port city. If confirmed, the withdrawal from Kherson, in a region of the same name that Moscow illegally annexed in September, will pile on another setback to Russia's early failed attempt in the chaotic and hasty retreat from the administrative region around Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv. Russian forces captured Kherson early in the invasion, which began February 24th. Kyiv's forces have zeroed in on the city, whose pre-war population was 280,000, and cut off supply lines in recent weeks as part of a large counteroffensive in eastern and southern Ukraine that has pushed Russian troops out of the large swaths of territory. Recapturing Kherson could allow Ukraine to win back lost territory in the Zaporizhzhia region and other southern areas, including Crimea, which Russia illegally seized in 2014. A Russian retreat is almost certain to raise domestic pressure on the Kremlin to escalate the conflict. In national news, GOP closing in on House win, Senate control up for grabs. Republicans were closing in Wednesday on a narrow House majority, while control of the Senate hinged on a series of tight races in a midterm election that defied expectations of sweeping conservative victories driven by frustration over inflation and President Joe Biden's leadership. Either party could secure a Senate majority with wins in both Nevada and Arizona, where the races were too close to call. But there was strong possibility that for the second time in 2 years, the Senate majority could come down to a runoff in Georgia next month, with Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker failing to earn enough votes to win outright. In the House, Democrats kept seats in districts from Virginia to Pennsylvania to Kansas, while many in states like New York and California had not been called as of this report. But Republicans notched several important victories in their bid to get to the 218 seats needed to reclaim the House majority. In a particularly symbolic victory, the GOP toppled House Democratic campaign chief in New York. Control of Congress will be a key factor in determining the future of Biden's agenda and serve as a referendum on his administration as the nation reels from record-high inflation and concerns over the direction of the country. A Republican House majority would likely trigger a spate of investigations into Biden and his family, while a GOP takeover of the Senate would hobble the president's ability to make judicial appointments. Democrats saw candidates who prioritized protecting abortion rights after this summer's Supreme Court decision overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade court decision perform well. The party won governor's races in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, battlegrounds critical to Biden's 2020 win over Donald Trump. In business news, Musk seeks to reassure advertisers on Twitter after chaos. Elon Musk sought to reassure big companies that advertise on Twitter on Wednesday that his chaotic takeover of the social media platform won't harm their brands, acknowledging that some dumb things might happen on his way to creating what he says will be a better, safer user experience. The latest erratic move on the minds of major advertisers that the company depends on for revenue was Musk's decision to abolish a new official label on high-profile Twitter accounts just hours after introducing it. Twitter began adding gray labels to prominent accounts on Wednesday, including brands like Coca-Cola, Nike, and Apple, to indicate they are authentic. A few hours later, the labels started disappearing. Apart from being an aesthetic nightmare when looking at the Twitter feed, it was simply another way of creating a two-class system. The Tesla CEO told advertisers in an hour-long conversation broadcast live on Twitter it wasn't addressing the core problem, he said. And finally, in more business news, Wall Street washout as stocks tumble, crypto dives further. Stocks fell sharply Wednesday as unease flared in far-reaching corners of financial markets, and Wall Street gave back a big chunk of the gains it had built in a rally leading up to Election Day. The S&P 500 lost 2.1%, or 80 points, to close at 3,749 and erased most of its gain from what had been a three-day winning streak. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 647 points, or 2%, to 32,514, while the Nasdaq Composite tumbled 263 points, or 2.5%, to close at 10,353. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's on time for a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. Enjoy. Good Thursday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Words I Choose to Live By. God is love. Looking for the perfect gift this time of year? Invest in love. Begin with yourself and then share it with others. When living with love, there's nothing you cannot do. Have an amazing Thursday. We are part of my conversation coming up with award-winning author and music journalist Mark Blake in today's Entertainment Spotlight. Stay with us. You're listening to Conversation Daily News. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with Entertainment Spotlight. Award-winning author and journalist Mark Blake joined me on Conversations Live, the radio show, to talk about his new book, Magnifico, The A to Z of Queen. Here's a bit of our conversation.
Mark, thank you so much for the time. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
So, Mark, this is one of those things, you are known for being able to write about music and pop culture. What has it been like for you to see that continued love and interest when it comes to Queen?
It's fascinating, really, because I don't think anyone could have predicted it, in those initial years after Freddie Mercury died. And I remember interviewing Brian May and Roger Taylor in the 90s, and Queen was kind of dead and buried then. They were working on solo projects. I think the idea that there'd be a movie, a stage musical, the fact that they tour again with someone like Adam Lambert or whatever, that seemed a long way off. So it's kind of fascinating, but it's nice to get surprises. It's been a pleasant surprise, I think.
And you've been able to do something, Mark, even some of the early reviews already coming in on Amazon, right? For those who have read the book, said, even for those who think they know the story of Queen, this is a book they want to get. Talk to us about that. What kind of an undertaking was it for you to kind of take us through the A to Z when it comes to a group as big as Queen?
Well, I think the secret with it is to look for those parts of the story that just haven't been told before. And there's a lot in this book about Freddie Mercury's early life. When he first came to England from Zanzibar in India, which is where he'd grown up and been educated. And, it's interesting to talk to his childhood friends, because back then he was just called Freddie, they called him Freddie, but he was Freddie Bulsara. And it was interesting for them to then suddenly lose touch with him and then see him 2 or 3 years later on television performing as Freddie Mercury, and they were just astonished that it was the same kid they'd known and the same kid they'd sort of grown up with. So I think that was a part of it for me.
Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. We thank you all for tuning into this edition of Conversations Daily News. We'll better get on tomorrow to wrap up this week. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversation Daily News today. Now let's go make it a great one.